We are short of a quorum by one member, so we're going to wait a couple more minutes. Hopefully, we will reach a quorum fairly soon. All right, fantastic. We are at quorum. So we're going to start. Good evening, everyone. My name is, this is the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee of Manhattan Community Board 5. My name is Leila Logezeko, I'm the chair. A few words about how the meeting is going to proceed. We have one application tonight. That will be followed by a presentation. We will, let me explain how we're going to review the application, our standard way of reviewing applications. The applicants will have an opportunity to give a full, complete, and uninterrupted presentation. After this presentation concludes, members of the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions. All the questions that need to be asked will be taken, and the applicant will have an opportunity to respond to those questions. Once this question session concludes, I will open up the floor to members of the public. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments. The applicants will have an opportunity to address those questions and comments. Once this open question and comment period concludes, we will move to business session. During business session, only members of the committee are allowed to discuss the matter, and the committee will discuss, make comments, and issue a motion on the application. We can take 4 actions. We can either approve, we can disapprove, we can approve with conditions, and we can disapprove with conditions. This recommendation will become the committee's position. This committee's position will be forwarded to the full board of Community Board 5, which meets on Thursday, October the 8th. This position of the committee will be presented. The full board will vote on this position. The vote of the full board will become the official position of the community board. This official position will be forwarded to the Department of City Planning, the City Planning Commission, as well as our elected officials. So with all of that being said, I think we are ready to start. I will say as a preamble that the applicant actually appeared in front of this committee last month. They gave us a presentation on the restoration proposal that is associated with this land use action. So what I will ask the applicant to this time around really focus on the land use action. I think the committee has had a chance to look in depth into the restoration of the theater, as well as the construction of the annex. So I think we're ready for the heavy-duty technical stuff that really makes this application and this action that is in front of us. So I think we have a good team of applicants here with us tonight. So I will let you guys take it from there.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present our really exciting and dynamic project that's being taken on by the Schubert organization. As you are aware, based on our previous presentation, we're looking for approval for the rehab bonus. This would include the restoration, rehabilitation, and expansion of one of our most loved and famous theaters, the Court Theater. The program we're undertaking addresses and tries to remedy the shortcomings of this facility, which is significantly old. It's pre-World War I. We're looking to restore many of the historic elements of the theater and ensure that any replacement features are historically sensitive. We're looking to additionally upgrade the infrastructure and layout of the theater to accommodate future theatrical productions and capabilities for both plays and musicals. We're looking as part of our annex and the ability to acquire a 25 by 100 lot, which is a unique situation given the density in the area. We were able to acquire this adjacent lot. And with that lot, we're going to be able to expand the infrastructure of the theater to accommodate a more pleasant and efficient work environment, and for not just the actors, staff, and all of the other people that make the shows happen, but also for the patrons. So where folks could have bathrooms, ADA bathrooms, be able to go up and down the building with elevators if you have, if you're handicapped. So we are really excited presenting this project to you. The project has been approved by the Landmarks Preservation Commission. And we've also received significant support from various civic and cultural institutions. Some of those include the Landmarks Conservancy, the New York City Partnership, the Broadway League, which is the umbrella organization for the Broadway theaters. So just to keep this presentation moving, I'm going to hand it over to our land use attorney, Paul Selver. And once again, this is a very difficult time for our industry, and all of our theaters are shut down. And this to us represents a way to sort of get people excited about Broadway, and to have this great project happen in the heart of our theater district is going to really motivate folks and really send a signal that Broadway is still here, that although our doors are shut, we're going to come back. So we, again, appreciate your time, and I will turn it over to Paul Selver.
Paul, you're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Julio. I'd like to start by asking Leila. We weren't sure, frankly, how many new people were going to be here, how many members of the public were going to be here. And so because we wanted to be sure that no one was deprived of the full presentation, we've actually prepared and done the full presentation. I can suggest, if everyone has seen, or almost everyone has seen it, that we move quickly through the elements of the theater's deficiencies and what we are proposing to do to it. But I'd ask if you would bear with us while we do that.
Well, as you know, members of the committee do receive material and have an opportunity to review it, and are actually asked to review it. So although some members may have been absent last month, they are cognizant with the material. This is also a proposal that we reviewed at the Landmarks Committee a couple of years ago, and therefore, the full board also has been exposed to the proposal. So what I would say is, and members of the public, of course, had the opportunity to see this proposal last month, and it was fully posted as per our requirements. I understand that you have a deck that you may want to, follow. So, please, for the sake of expediency, and also to give us the opportunity to really look at the technical aspect of this application, which is a complicated and very technical proposal. Maybe you can rush through this part of, the design and improvements, both structural and others to the theater, so that we can really move to the action that is in front of us.
Okay, I'm going to suggest, that's fine, John. I'm going to suggest that John Darby focus on slide, and John, you'll know which is the slide 5, slide 16. These are overview slides that don't really go into, that explain generally what's being done. Slide 17, 18, and 19. And then Fran, if you can do 26, 27. Actually, if you could go through your slides fairly quickly because they don't quite lend themselves to the same kind of summary. So that will cut out some time.
Great, thank you.
Focus on the highlights. So with that background, this is the zoning lot. It's 47,700 square feet. It's divided into three portions. The Court Theater, which consists of the original Court Theater's tax lot, a 9,500 square foot site, and the 2,500 square foot, what we call the Annex site, the addition that the Schuberts were able to acquire as part of this transaction. It includes the hotel owner site, which is the site of the future Rio Hotel. That is the site to which all of the bonus development rights would be transferred. And it includes a site that we call the as of right site, which is a site that is being developed without any bonus floor area at all, without any waivers at all. And that site consists of, on 48th Street, a new hotel being developed by McSam, and on 47th Street, an existing hotel that is owned by Highgate Hotels, the Night Hotel. That's the only building that exists that will remain. It has a little under 64,000 square feet in it. The next slide illustrates the zoning for the site. As you can see, it is a split lot with a dividing line between the C6-5.5 district in the mid-block, 12 base 14.4 bonus district, and the C6-7T district, which is the 7th Avenue district on the 7th Avenue frontage, a 14 to 16.8 FAR district running through the middle of the as of right site. So the fact that it's a split lot becomes important in one of the zoning actions that we're asking for. So you could say we're looking at three zoning actions here. The first is to bonus under 81-745, 119,000 square feet of floor area on account of the substantial rehabilitation of the Court Theater. And later on, we'll walk you through how the theater qualifies, the rehabilitation that we're talking about qualifies against that standard, the standard in the statute. And we're also happy to talk about how it compares to the two other theater rehabilitation bonus special permits that have been granted. The second part of it is a text change that would permit it within this provision of the law, only for theaters that receive the theater rehabilitation bonus, and only for zoning lots that are located partially in a C6-5.5 zoning district, to allow any floor area bonus, regardless of which zone it's located in, to be relocated anywhere on the site. So that, to put it in more pragmatic terms, floor area typically is limited to the zoning district in which it's located in split lots. That's the general rule where you have different basic maximum floor areas for the lot. So that in a case like this, for a commercial use where there are different basic maximum floor area ratios, the bonus that would be generated in the C6-7T would have to be used in the C6-7T, and the bonus that would be generated in the C6-5.5 would have to be used in the C6-5.5. What we are asking the City Planning Commission to do here, and we hope that you'll recommend in favor of it, is to modify the text to allow for a very limited class of zoning lots, of which I think this is the only one that you'll ever see, to be able to take the floor area from the C6-7T, the bonus floor area that's generated in the C6-7T, and use it in the C6-5.5 in the Clarity Hotel, the Ryu Hotel. If that is approved and if the full bonus is granted, the Ryu Hotel would be 49 stories tall, and it would have a zoning floor area of about 264,000 square feet. And the third element would be the grant of the special permit as modified. So those are the three zoning actions that we're talking about here. At this point, I'd like to go quickly through the description of the work and why it's being done. And then we'll come back and talk more about the land use aspects and about the hotel. So John Darby from Schubert and Francesca Russo, Schubert's preservation restoration architect, will speak to those issues.
Thank you.
Good evening, all. I'm John Darby, Senior VP for Facilities at Schubert. It's good to see you all again. As we had earlier explained about our project, the theater is quite old, as Julio mentioned, built prior to World War I, and it is among a very few of that earliest generation of still extant Broadway theaters. It's quite small and it has a lot of limitations, both for the front of house, the areas that serve the audiences, as well as backstage, which limits the size and types of productions that the theater can house. We'll quickly go through some of these deficiencies in both parts of the theater building. Next, please. There's some quick images illustrating a lot of these deficiencies. You can see that what is going to enable us to address most of them is gaining more space allowed by the new annex to be built to the west of the existing theater. We will be able to put many of the backstage functions in that part of the annex adjacent to the stage house. All of the dressing rooms will be in there, facilities that the theater doesn't even have, such as a wardrobe facility, hair and wig, and other support spaces. And adjacent to the front of the house, there will be sufficiently sized lounges and restrooms, as well as much improved circulation and elevator, making the building accessible for people with disabilities. And it will allow us to address most of the deficiencies, yet restoration and improvement work in the theater will also add to those improvements. Next, please. Quick look at rendering of the facade of the theater and the new annex to the right. Next. This is a shot of the floor plan, orchestra or street level of the improved theater. The stage now is really a full-size stage, whereas before the stage left wing was occupied mostly by dressing rooms and was a very limiting factor at the theater. There's also much changes under the stage that will improve the functioning of the theater for productions, and we will have modern dressing rooms that will more than double the amount of space currently available to the performers. Similarly, in the front of house, as I said, you see the green areas that will allow the audience to enjoy before the show and intermission in sufficiently sized spaces to provide the amenities that they expect. It will also allow, as I said earlier, for really full accessibility for patrons with disabilities. Next. Back of house, already mentioned dressing rooms, improved wings, improved in, performance area, a better load-in door to enable shows to get their scenery in more efficiently, removing an air conditioning system that right now actually sits in the stage house, right adjacent to the performing area. All these things will be able to be improved. In creating the improved performing area, there are many improvements that will happen under stage that they're not visible in this particular plan view, but are as equally important. Next, please.
Forgive me for interrupting, John. Based on the outline that Paul provided before, I think we can skip ahead to Fran's portion of the presentation, unless there's anything that you want.
I would just add that this is going to make not only a better, but a safer and a better work area for both the people that work there and the patrons who come to visit. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Francesca Russo, the architect for the restoration of the theater. And I just want to say that I've been working with the Schubert organization for over 25 years. And although this theater is extremely unique, it's also extremely needy. And these couple of slides will show exactly what the needs are. The facade is really in need of rehabilitation. The windows are worn, obscured by AC units. There's a later date marquee and later date doors and signage that just does not work with the historic facade. Next, please. These are the improvements that we're recommending. A new finish on the facade, the removal of the air conditioning units, which will be replaced. HVAC will be replaced throughout the theater, and there will be no more air conditioners hanging out of the windows, a new marquee, and new doors, and new signage, all that will be compatible with the lovely articulation of this design. Next, please. The interior and the exterior, as I've mentioned before, are both modeled after the Petit Trianon in Versailles, and the details are really quite remarkable. One of the most amazing details that is no longer seen is the proscenium. Behind the lattice work of the proscenium was once beautiful blue-green Tiffany glass, all of which has become broken, and it was lit from behind, creating this really beautiful look. And that will all be restored. All of the decorative plaster that has been damaged will be restored. The original color palette will be restored. We actually did analysis to make sure that we were in the right vein with the color palette. And the bas-relief plaster will be restored in the ticket lobby and throughout the theater. In addition, one of the windows will be lowered and detailed with historical appropriate detailing, but accessible for wheelchair users. Next, please. One of the things that is really troublesome is there is strewn throughout the theater ductwork, conduit, etc., and it really detracts from the theater experience. Next, please. Also, there is an old light box that encloses the old show lighting that is no longer needed, and all of that will be removed, the plasterwork behind it restored, as well as structural piping and conduit. Next, please. One of the really important things that is going to happen is all of the HVAC components are now going to be hidden. They'll be behind walls and within enclosures. This is one of the main enclosures that is going to happen. This is a soffit that exists now, but is being projected out to actually enclose all of the ductwork. And other than additional grills, nothing else will be seen, and all of the interior details will be made pristine again. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, now back to the development site. This is the zoning lot site plan, roof plan, as showing what it would look like if and when all of the buildings were developed to their full potential. You can see the court on the upper right-hand side, and then moving to the left, the annex, and then further to the left, the McSam Hotel building. Going south, going toward the bottom of the page below the McSam building is on the left, the Night Hotel, and then on the right, the roof plan for Ryu Hotel. Next. This is a very conceptual view, but a diagrammatic view of the ground floor. The hotel has a lobby on the west side behind its pedestrian circulation space, then its loading dock, and it has the entrance to a 100-car garage. Next, quick look at the typical hotel floors. Light green being the rooms, dark green being the common areas, and gray being back of house space or mechanical space. And then next is, I think, the elevation. That shows the new hotel, the Ryu Hotel in context. As you can see, it's about the same height as the Times Square Edition Hotel, which is the new hotel that is on the corner of 47th and 7th Avenue, and somewhat lower than the 20th Century Fox building on 6th Avenue, but certainly in context to this neighborhood and not out of scale. Next, you can see that the base, it has a base with a strong setback to continue the pattern that is established on the 6th Avenue side by the 20th Century Fox building, and which is also picked up on the western end of the block by the Times Square Edition Hotel. Next, obviously the key question here is you're asking for a bonus. Why do you think you should get a bonus, and why do you think you should get a bonus of the size that you're asking for? And we think that the reasons for both, the answer to both of those questions comes from looking at the statute. This is a case where the key qualifications are in Section 2, and the key qualifications that we in this program will provide are highlighted in red. So what are they? They are, first, major structural changes to improve its design and commercial viability. And that comes in two forms. One is the reworking of the backstage areas that John described to provide additional backstage space. And number two, the construction of the Annex, which is a major improvement and expansion to the theater. I think it's the first time that any theater owner, in fact, has built this kind of a facility to enlarge a theater. It has about 15,000 square feet in total. Number two, the alterations and enhancements to the theater itself, expanding its wings, increasing rehearsal space, in fact, providing a real rehearsal space, increasing the space available for dressing rooms, increasing the size of the lobby, increasing the size of the restrooms in this theater, making everything handicapped accessible beyond the legal requirements, and a very exceptional historic restoration, all of which are things that are important both to the commercial viability of the theater, because they will give it the capacity to house a much wider range of productions. They will give it the capacity to provide a much higher level of amenity to both the people who use it, the stagehands, the actors, and the people who attend theater. And they will give us back one of the few buildings on Broadway that is both an interior and exterior landmark, fully restored. And the scope and extent of this is equal or greater than the scope and extent of both of the two prior theater rehabilitation bonuses, both of which were, I would say, both of which granted a slightly higher floor area bonus, but we're in the same order of magnitude in terms of size. I think, Leila, I'd rather answer questions because I'm afraid that you guys have about the land use than try to go through it and perhaps wind up boring everybody. So I invite questions on anything, but certainly.
We are never bored by you, Paul, never. Do you have much more to present in terms of the land use action and the rationale for which, in your opinion, we should support it?
Well, I think feel that as I said, the scope of the work that we've been talking about and that we presented in much more detail last month is one. It's exactly the kind of work that this statute was intended to encourage. And number two, it is as comprehensive and as thoughtful as any program that one could imagine for making a theater viable into the 21st century. So, I mean, I think it would be best if you ask questions. I'm happy to.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, so I will open up the floor to questions for members of the committee. As usual, please use the raise hand function that is at the lower section of the participants window. And if I could ask that, I think Bern has his mic on. If you could put it on mute, that would be fantastic. Okay, I see that Mike Greeley has a question. Mike, go ahead.
Okay. When did the lot merger take place?
So I hope I'm right in my years. I know I can give you the sequencing, and Julio may actually be able to correct me on the dates, or Adam. The first lot merger was with what we call the as of right site. Adam, can we go back to, I think, slide 2? Yeah, what's called here the McSam Highgate site. At that time, that was all owned by the Rockefeller Group, and they came to Schubert. They wanted to buy the basic development rights to the Court Theater, and as part of that transaction, Schubert, as Julio said, saw an opportunity, and that was an opportunity to acquire additional land in order to unpack the theater and really turn it into what they wanted to do. So that was the first merger. And as I said,
just to clarify, Paul, are we talking only about lot 55, or does that also include lot 7?
It's both. It was both. At that time, Rockefeller owned both. And subsequently, the developer of the Ryu Hotel site came and expressed an interest in buying the development rights from Schubert, and the bonus development rights were development rights that were something that that was of interest to Schubert to sell, and it provided them with the wherewithal to really do the kind of rehabilitation and expansion and restoration of the theater that it deserved. So again, I think this was a little later in 2018 that site went to contract and was merged into this site. The development rights, bonus development rights, obviously haven't been purchased because they haven't been approved. So that they're out there, but that was the sequence on the zoning lot. Subsequently, Rockefeller sold off its site, first in part to Highgate Lot 7, and in part to McSam. Did that answer the question?
Mike, does that answer your question?
Yes, that answers. I'm fine. So I just clarified the Rockefeller Group merged with the Court Theater in which year?
I think 2018. It could have been 2017. It was not 2019. That much I know. But it was either 2017 or 2018. And the subsequent merger with the reuse site came not too long after that.
Okay, thank you.
So just so that I understand correctly, lot 49, which is the Court Theater, merged with lot 5 and 7, and they sold their air rights, their as of right air rights, unused air rights, to lot 55 plus 7 for the construction of the building.
For the construction of the building that Rockefeller wanted to build.
Okay. Did they poach all the available air rights, or did they take just a portion of the available air rights?
Okay. Well, Rockefeller purchased all of the basic non-bonus development rights.
Okay. And was that part of a transaction where Court purchased the annex? Who did Court purchase the annex from?
Okay. As part of the consideration for buying the basic development rights, Rockefeller agreed to convey the annex site to the court.
Okay, so it was a sort of trade-off. You take our air rights, we give you the annex, and we figure out how much money one party owes to the other.
It was that, the Rockefeller Group also gave the Court Theater owner the right to either use or sell its bonus development rights. So there were two parts to the consideration there.
Okay, but the bonus FAR is only coming from the Court Theater.
Well, the bonus FAR is being generated by the entire zoning line. In other words, it's 2.4 times the area in the C55, 2.8 times the area in the C67.
Okay, you have to repeat that, and you have to tell us what the multiplier is.
Okay, so the bonus development rights are being generated by all of the lot area on the site. They're being generated by the portion of lots 55 and 7 that are in the C5.65.5. They're being generated by lot 11, the lot area in lot 11. They're being generated by the lot area of the court and the annex, and they're being generated by the lot area of lots 55 and 7 that are in the C67T portion of the site. They are only being generated, though, because the Court Theater is getting a substantial rehabilitation.
But they're being generated because the lots are merged.
Correct.
So although the Court Theater occupies the minority of the base square footage of the slots, because they are a theater and because they fall under the purview of Article 81-745, then the entire lot as merged is entitled to a bonus.
Well, I would say we'd love it if we were entitled to the bonus. It would simplify.
But it is your.
We are eligible. We are eligible for the
argument.
bonus. We are eligible for the bonus. Yes.
Okay.
And Leila, is that only if the requested amendment gets adopted?
No, the requested amendment, without the requested amendment, the bonus that is generated within the C6-5.5, which is around 85,000 square feet, would be available if it were approved. The amendment allows an additional 33,000 and change square feet to be moved across the line and used by the hotel.
Okay, so let me just clarify that. so the bonus, if the text is applied as is, and if the split lot rule is applied, then the portion of lot 55 and lot 7 that is to the west of the split is no longer eligible for the bonus altogether, or is it still eligible for a bonus?
Well, it's eligible for a bonus, but it could only, that floor area could only be used on that side of the line.
Got it. Okay. So it would still be eligible for a bonus, and that would be like the big bonus, because it has a bonus max FAR of 16.8, whereas the rest of the lot is in a different zoning, has a different zoning, and therefore the bonus max FAR is lower.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, all right. I am following. Is everybody on the committee following? Is it clear to everyone, or do you need a little refresher on what a split lot does to a development? Because that's really the sort of like the fundamental of at least that particular action.
Can I just say
Go ahead, Paul.
a little bit about the concept of split lots, the way zoning regulates split lots in general, and there are a few exceptions to this, that go to zoning lots that predated being split. But a zoning lot zoning lot that is created and is divided by district boundaries, that has different basic maximum floor area ratios within each zone. And what that means is that in a zoning district where commercial, in this case, the commercial base is 12 on one side of the line and 14 on the other, you're subject to the rule that says all floor area that is developed within that zone has to be located within that zone. All floor area that is generated by the 14 FAR has to be located in the 14 FAR zone. All floor area that's generated by the 12 FAR zone has to be located there. However, also in these zones where the base floor area is the same as it is if it were residential. So that if this were a residential building, we actually wouldn't need, if the hotel were a residential building, we wouldn't need the waiver. Because residential base is 10 in both districts and the residential maximum is 12 in both districts, it's not considered a split lot for those purposes. And the floor area can flow freely back and forth across the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's provided that the residential FAR would be the same. But it happens, as we know, I mean, there was a very recent court case, dated from last week, that basically shows that the residential FAR can be 8 and the commercial can be 10 or 12, and therefore it is split. So the fact that it is residential is not really the qualifying criteria. So basically the rule, the general rule for a split lot is that when the FAR, meaning the density that is attached to a underlying zone lot, basically has to apply. On one side of the split, it has to be this base FAR, and on the other side of the split, it has to be the other FAR, that you cannot sort of like massage it and make it, like take the higher density, or do a sort of like mix and match, or do a balance, or do an average. It basically has to be the bonus, the max FAR on one side of the split and the max FAR on the other side of the split. So if there were no bonus here, you would have a building that could be 14 FAR to the west of the line and a 12 FAR to the east of the line. Just want to make sure that all the members of the committee understand the concept. I know it's super technical. All right, let's continue with questions. I see that Julie has patiently had her hand up. Julie, go ahead.
My question is a follow-up to what you just stated. So it's permitted for 14 and 12, but what is proposed? What's being proposed here is you guys are proposing using the 14 on the west side and on the east side. Are you raising the FAR on the east side? Are we generating more FAR? What's the exact floor area that's being
Okay, so
transferred or?
what is being generated by the bonus, what is being generated pursuant to the bonus is, or what we are seeking approval for pursuant to the bonus, is 2.4 times the lot area on the east side of the line, which is the difference between the 12 and the 14.4.
So it's an extra 2.4 on top of the 12.
On top of the 12, yes. And then on the west side of the line, we're seeking 2.8. We would seek to generate 2.8 FAR on top.
In addition to the 14?
On top of the 14, okay? The 14 is going to stay on the west side of the line. We don't have any interest or right in the 14. What you're seeking to do is move the 2.8 that exists only because the Court Theater is being rehabilitated over to the east side of the line so that it can be used in the hotel.
I guess that's the part I don't understand. Are you creating extra FAR with this amended text?
No, we're not creating, no. We are not.
Just shifting it from one side to the other.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, I think that clarifies.
Okay, is that clear, Julie? I know it's super technical.
Yeah, I think that helps. I was just worried that it was creating additional FAR, but you're just moving the bulk from one area to the other.
That's correct.
No, you are basically applying the bonus max FAR of C6-7T to the entire development site.
No, we're not. We're asking to bonus the C6-7T for the full amount that we could bonus there, which is 2.8 FAR. And what we're then asking for is if everyone feels the bonus is merited, we're asking that we have the right to move that FAR over to the other side of the line so that it can be used in the hotel. We're asking for a 2.4 bonus over the rest of the site.
And when you say the rest of the site, what are you referring to?
Lot 11, 49, and the eastern half of 55 and 7.
Got it. Okay. Okay. I'm still following. Is everybody clear? Feel free to raise your hand and ask another round of clarifying questions. It's really important that everybody understands what this complicated action means.
And I hope I can explain it properly.
Yeah, no, and thank you for being patient.
If I haven't, I want to make sure everybody
any other, okay, I see lots of raised hands. Let's take a question from Matt. Matt, go ahead, unmute yourself. Go ahead with your question.
So I think that I followed what the answer was to Julie's question. I just want to make sure I did the outcome, because you're generating it in one place, moving it to another place, and then shifting it back. So shifting it to the sort of from red to blue to yellow. So the outcome will be the under the hotel owner picture here, instead of the bonus max FAR being 14.4, it will be allowed to be it will be allowed to go up to 16.8, and that's where that will end up. Is that accurate?
No, not quite. Okay, so we can't generate the maximum FAR that we can generate on the lot area, the 35,000 square feet within the C6 5.5 is 2.4 FAR. No matter what, that's all we can do. And that would be under current, without the text change, floor area that could be used on the hotel owner's site, on the yellow site. The maximum FAR we can generate in the C67T of the 12,000 and change square feet there is about 33,000 square feet. And what we're proposing to do is to move that 33,000 square feet over to the hotel owner site. So another way of thinking about it is that the hotel owner site is the floor area on the hotel owner site is made up of three components. The first is the floor area, the basic floor area that's generated by the hotel site itself, which is 12 FAR on a 12,000 square foot site, which is 144,000 square feet. The second component is the 2.4 FAR that's generated from the bonus in the C6 5.5, which is about 85,000 square feet. And the third component is the bonus FAR from the C67T, which is about 33,000 square feet. And you add all of those up and it should come close to 264, because I'm doing some rounding just to make it easy.
So that basically means that the Rockefeller site, the Highgate site, is basically eligible for this bonus, but they have no use for it. They're not planning to build this density, and therefore they want to shift it to lot 11. And it is not permitted because it is on the other side of the split. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, what technically happened is they sold the right to either use or convey the bonus floor area to Schubert. And part of, as I said, part of the consideration for the basic Schubert development rights that were conveyed to Rockefeller was Rockefeller's giving the right to Schubert to, in effect, use its bonus development rights, take advantage of its development rights.
Okay.
Bonus.
Okay. But the 2.8 FAR is only being generated by the blue area that is to the west of the split.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Matt, does that answer and clarify your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to Clayton. Clayton, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Thank you. So that does help clarify conceptually, but just to be specific about what you are actually proposing, because the figures still are very elusive, and the slide we're looking at doesn't seem to be quite accurate. The bonus max FAR on the east side of the line that you are actually proposing is 17.2. If I'm following the math that you have just been laying out, is that correct? Not the bonus from the net result of the proposal, east side of the line is 17.2 for lot 11. Is that correct?
You mean if you take the total floor area that's developed on lot 11 and divide
when the building is finished, when the building is done, what FAR are we looking at on lot 11?
So you're talking about a footprint FAR, you understand. It's not, has nothing to do with the overall FAR of the zoning lot. It's a footprint FAR, and it's a measure of how the floor area is distributed on the lot, because there are other lots that have floor area that's considerably lower. But I just want to do the math, which is I'm going to do it in round numbers again.
Because I think it's just 2.8 added to the 14.4 that is shown here.
It's you may be right about that. I'm not, but can you say it again a little bit more clearly?
Well, I think if I've been following, because it's gnarly, but I think if I've been following closely enough, that the bonus FAR on the east side of the line, which is listed here as 14.4, the 2.8 that you are talking about from the west side of the line to be shifted over would be added to that bonus.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
So we're talking 17.2 for lot 11. And I understand.
Well, if you're adding, you're adding 2.8 to 14. It's not.
It's the thing
No, I
is,
understand. I understand the question, and it's not right. I'll tell you why it's not right, not quite right, because the floor area ratio is the multiplier of the lot area that you use to determine how much floor area you can put on the lot. In other words, there are two components to how big a building you can build. One is the area of your lot, and the other is the floor area ratio that applies to that lot. So here, about 2/3 of the lot, maybe even more, maybe 35,000 square feet of the lot is being developed, or is generating 14.4 FAR. 12,000 square feet of the lot is generating the 16.8. So the 2.8 FAR is being generated by less lot area than the lot area that's generating the 14.4. What I would say is it's actually more like about a 15.4. And I'll tell you how I get to that number. I'm assuming 14.4 gets generated here. 33,000 gets generated over here, because that's what 12,000 times 2.8 is, plus or minus. That 33,000 gets transferred here. The 33,000 is about 1 FAR of a 35,000 square foot, of the 35,000 square foot area that is within the C65. Is that clear or confusing?
No, I'm following.
Okay, so I mean that's if I had to give a number to work analyzing it your way, that's the way I would say it.
That is very helpful. Thank you.
and another way to look at it, Clayton, is that if you look at the blue side that is to the west of the split, you can see that the floor area is actually smaller than lot 11. If they were the same size, then your math would be correct. But as you can see, it is slightly smaller, and therefore the density that is generated at the higher FAR doesn't come to total 2.8. It probably comes, as Paul said, to 1.2, maybe 1.5.
Actually, no, it's actually a little less than 1 mile, because it's about 33,000 square feet is generated, a little bit more. This is 35,700 square feet. So
Okay.
it's actually a little less than 1 FAR.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you. I think we're starting to get clarity. We have more hands up. Nancy, go ahead.
Okay, so this is just a flat plan of what you're planning to do. Hasn't someone done a 3-dimensional zoning envelope diagram that you can present to us? It would make it much easier to understand. We're talking about a 3-dimensional solution here, and we only have a map.
Well, we have. Would it help if we went to the elevation, Nancy?
No, it would help if you could tell us what the blue looks like 3-dimensionally, where the yellow looks like.
Okay, let's go to
three-dimensionally in those same colors.
Let's go to the elevation, and I'll try to explain it.
No, but someone must have done a 3D model.
I'm not sure. I know we didn't do one. I'm not sure whether the hotel.
Some architect somewhere has done that.
Okay. So, but let me try.
You have to do that in order to design a building. You have to do it so that you know you're complying with the zoning. So I would like to see that. Am I asking a bad question here, Layla?
No.
No, you're not. I mean, you're not asking a bad question. I mean, we can certainly send the sort of, well,
Well, let's try.
Let's look at this. Okay, so this is the height.
Two-dimensional representation.
Okay, but Nancy, that at this very moment, that is not available. So let's give it a shot with the elevation.
So what you see here, just in terms of, this gives you a sense of the height. The blue-green is the Ryu Hotel. That's the building that's receiving the development rights. To its left, there is a column that's divided into two parts. The lower part, which is the part on 47th Street, and this is an elevation on 47th Street looking north, is the Night Hotel. And that's the height of the Night Hotel, that lower box. The upper box, if you were to extrude it down to the ground, is the height of the McSam Hotel on 48th Street. So what you see in this elevation is the portion of that is above the Night Hotel, and that is not behind the Ryu Hotel. But that gives you a sense of the different heights. The Court Theater is about 80 feet in height, a little bit lower on that side. So what you have on one side is, on the 47th Street side, is a building at about 120 feet, an existing building of about 120 feet in height, a new building of 520 feet in height. And on the 48th Street side, you have a building that is the Court Theater, which is about 80 feet in height, and the new McSam Hotel, which is about 331 feet in height. And you know, I can see whether we could get a drawing that we could send to you. We'd have to get it, I think, from Clarity's architect, Ryu's architect. Certainly see whether we could get you something before the board meeting.
I think that if they could create, if it doesn't exist, if they could create a axonomic representation where we can see, you know, where the density would be with no action and where the density will be with action, that would really help a lot.
When you say with and without action, which actions are we talking about?
We're talking about the split lot rule.
Okay.
Okay, so I see more questions. Ryan, go ahead.
Thank you to the applicant for all of your thoughtful explanations here. At the beginning, you described why, in arguing for the amendment, that this is a very unique circumstance and that we might not see another like this. So I'm curious if you could just take a moment to summarize why you think this is very unique. I have some sort of intuition about that, but would love to hear your summary of why this would be quite unique.
No, it's well, the first of all, you very rarely get a theater rehabilitation bonus requests anyway, because in order to even be eligible for the theater rehabilitation bonus, two things have to happen at the same time. One, you have to have a development site that is about 2 to 3 years away from being developed. And on the same zoning lot, you have to have a theater. This bonus has been around for more than a generation. And it's only been used, in fact, probably more like 30 odd years. And it's only been used twice for that reason. So this would be the third time. And it just happens to be the case that this was a case where it was lucky. Now, when we were thinking about what criteria to put on the ability to do this, we did not want to make it widely available. And we thought about where it might happen, where the kinds of situations it might happen in. And the situations it might happen in are situations where you have a theater on a zoning lot that is, where the theater is in the mid-block and the zoning lot is includes portions of the higher avenue frontage zoning. There were, I think, 4 or 5 examples of that in the theater subdistrict. All of them, for one reason, or all of them have either been redeveloped or are being redeveloped. One of them was the Palace, which, as you know, is being basically relocated within its existing building. One of them was the Lyceum, which sold its development rights to what I know as not drawing a blank, the Bertelsmann building, although that's what it was when it was built. I'm not sure what it is today. There were 2 or 3 others, but in each case, there was no possibility that they were going to be developed because the theater had no more development rights to sell, and what would be the receiving site was basically a new building, a building that's been built in the last 20 or 30 years. So as a practical matter, this was the only site that this would apply to, at least for the next generation.
Okay, thank you. Does that address your question, Ryan?
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Okay, great. Julie, go ahead.
So because I'm helping with this resolution, I'm curious where these 3 numbers that add up to 264,000 is in your zoning calculation.
I don't think, first of all, I'm not sure that we don't really have a zoning, we don't really have a slide with the zoning calculations on it, so.
Yeah, I'm going through your application and you do have an extensive zoning chart.
Oh, okay.
And I do see some of the numbers that you mentioned, the 2.8 FAR, 135,000, but then to help us put together this resolution, I really need to have those numbers and the total. And
I guess what I would say is, this may be a situation where I would have to see what you're looking at and sort of
part of your application.
Explain from that.
You can't pull it up on the screen. It's part of your drawing set.
I don't have a copy of the application.
Can you pull it up on your end, Julie? Maybe we can share your screen.
Yeah, just give me a minute. I have to sign on my desktop here.
That would work.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to turn to Mike, who has a question. Mike, go ahead, and then we'll come back to you, Julie.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any zoning? I don't know how to say it. Is there a zone where there's unlimited? There's no height cap on a theater bonus, so that I just don't want to create a precedent where then it can be used to create a huge tower in the mid-block area with another zoning merger.
Well, all of the zones in the theater subdistrict, all the zones have a maximum bonus FAR. So in other words, you can't generate more than the zoning resolution says is the permitted bonus FAR. In this case, 2.4 and 2.8. In the highest bonus FAR that you can get for a theater rehabilitation bonus is 3. And that's where you have a base 15 times zone as opposed to a base 14 or 12. There's no height limit but there is no height limit in Midtown. So that with or without a bonus, you can develop a very tall building. What's significant here, I think, is that all of the buildings that are on this lot are permitted, are compliant with height, setback, and yard regulations. In other words, from an envelope perspective, they're all buildings that the zoning would allow to occur on a lot like this. I'm not sure that that answered your question, but if you want to follow up, I'm happy to try more.
No, that answered my question. Thank you very much.
Okay. You know what, hold on, Julie, I actually may have that here because I think I may have made a copy of it. And if I have it here, it's I blew it up so that it's more legible. So, but that should be up anyway so that we all can follow along. So can you point to me, can you point to me the numbers?
I'm trying to figure out the numbers. These columns are for the C6-7T, and you have as of right existing to remain to be 0.7. And then the 2.8 that you mentioned is in the proposed column. And that seems to be generating 135,000 square feet.
No, it's not generating. It's not the 135. Let me just see for a sec. Hold on.
I don't know if others can see this, but then the C6 5.5 under the proposed column has all these different FARs.
So the 2.8, okay, is these are numbers for the as of right site. I think the 2.8 may be coincidental, not 100% sure, but let me just see if I can carry it through. If you look at the C6-7T, and the as of right site is 135,000, which is more than 2.8. I'm wondering whether this wouldn't be something. I mean, I haven't tried to sort of put these together in the way that
usually
you're doing.
The architect puts together under notes or under proposed, you see what's spelled out, what's being, what the bonuses are, and then the total bonus and what's being asked for. I feel like it's a little bit, it's not spelled out, at least in the zoning chart. Or
okay, the zoning lot total. I'm just trying to see whether.
Paul, if I can say something to just provide a little bit of context.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, jump right in.
The FAR numbers that you see, Julie, the 2.8, the 5.5, those are based on the total lot area for the zoning lot, including the C6-7T portion and the C6-5.5 portion. So I think for what you're asking for, they're actually not that useful. They were calculated in that manner at city planning's direction, but for purposes of understanding the bonus and how it's generated, or actually how the total floor area on the clarity side is generated, I think it's worth shifting to the left of the table in the column where you see the lot areas for the different portions of the zoning lot, and below that, the maximum FAR and the maximum floor area. So to follow Paul's way of breaking down things before, the 3 different increments, numbers do not appear on this table, unfortunately. But I can show you the calculations that I think are fairly simple to get those numbers, and we can, of course, put the numbers in writing at some point if that would be helpful. But first, to look at the basic as-of-right development rights that the Clarity site generates on its own, you can look at the lot area of that site, which is the row labeled development site hotel lot 11. That's 12,050 square feet. And you multiply it by the maximum, the basic maximum FAR of 12, which you see just a couple, yep, exactly. So that gets you the first increment of floor area, the basic development rights.
And where's that total? 12,000 times 12?
Yeah, it's not on here,
Not spelled out.
unfortunately, because
Okay.
you know the way the zoning calculations work is that you do them for each zoning district individually and for the lot area of the zoning lot as a whole. As a matter of applying the zoning regulations, you don't really break it down site by site, tax lot by tax lot. I understand that for purposes of our discussion, that's a useful way to talk about things. But for technical zoning analysis, it's just not done that way. So what you've written there is right. When you do the math, you'll get the first increment of floor area that Paul was describing, the basic development rights generated by the lot area of the Clarity site by itself. To get the second increment, meaning the bonus development rights generated by the portion of the zoning lot located in the C6-5.5 district, you take the total lot area within that district, which again is toward the top of the table here where it says in bold 35,648 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
35,000, excuse me, 35,648. And you multiply that by 2.4. That's the bonus FAR in the C6 5.5 district. And again, I apologize that I don't have the actual calculations at my fingertips, but that'll yield the number that's the second increment that Paul described. The third increment is the bonus floor area generated by the C6-7T portion of the zoning lot that with the text amendment would be transferred over the district boundary so that it can be utilized in the Clarity site. And the way to get that number is to look at the total lot area in the C6-7T portion, which is one of the other bold numbers toward the top of the screen here at 12,050 square feet. And you multiply that times 2.8, which is the bonus FAR in the C6-7T zoning district.
Okay. Got it.
So if you do the calculations you've written out there and add them up, you should get a little above 119,000 square feet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 263.
I don't want to spend too much time on that because I think we have many more questions. But maybe offline, Julie, if you can work with Paul and Adam, making sure that we do have the accurate numbers in our resolution. I think it's super important. So continuing on with questions, Mike, you have another question. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I don't know what happened, but I don't have any question.
Oh, okay. So I actually, let me see, any more questions from members of the committee? Okay, I see none. I have some questions about the language. I'm sorry, the language of the proposed zoning text amendment. So we've dwelled on the split lot, but there are other aspects of the text that you wish to modify that you have not really covered. I'm happy to go into those details, or Paul, if you want to underscore those, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, well, I don't have, I have the exact
Okay, so
language handy, but I can tell you what the substance. Why don't you read the language?
Yeah, so
then I'll explain the whys.
So basically, one modification that is being proposed here is that the qualification for substantial rehabilitation in the original text applies solely to interior changes. Whereas here, as you know, the annex is an exterior modification. So the proposal here for the zoning text amendment is to strike the word interior, meaning that that would apply to this one, which I think, you know, we agree that the annex is an improvement, but that would apply to any subsequent theater rehabilitation, and that would become the new language, the new definition of the qualification. Another change is to add ancillary space to qualification of substantial rehabilitation. Improving accessibility beyond applicable legal requirements, which currently is not in the zoning text. And then, so we dwelled on that quite extensively. The language would basically say that the bonus floor area would be permitted in such underlying districts, except that in the case of the zoning lot located wholly or partially in a C6-5.5 district, the commission may allow bonus floor area to be utilized anywhere on the zoning lot. And I'm reading it, I mean, I know we've discussed it at nauseam, but I'm reading it because if we don't like this language, we may, but we like the principle, we may have some language suggestions that would, still apply to this lot if we think it's a good idea, but restrict it to further use on other lots. So basically, and I just want to make sure that we don't have any further questions. But basically, the questions that are in front of us are: do we believe that the improvements to the theater, including the annex, that would become qualifying if this zoning text amendment is adopted, do we believe that it is substantial enough to justify the bonus? The bonus is a discretionary action, so the commission is going to have to make this determination, and they are seeking our opinion whether we believe that the improvements are substantial enough to justify this bonus. So that's the first question. The second question is, do we believe that shifting this bonus from the west side of the split lot to the east side of the split lot on a separate lot, do we believe that this is acceptable for that particular instance, with the understanding that it may apply to others, it may set a precedent. So we want to think about not only, well, okay, we like this applicant, or it's a fairly small amount of additional density, it's only density that's being shifted, but we want to make sure that we're not creating a precedent that may come and bite us, and not only us, but also our neighbors and other community boards and other parts of the city. So I think that, those are really the, sort of like two questions that we need to figure out. So maybe we can start with the easy one. Do we believe that the improvements to the theater itself are significant? And I'm actually just realizing that I'm out of order. I would need to open up the floor to members of the public and see if there are any questions and comments from members of the public. So keep your thoughts, but let me turn to members of the public. Do we have any questions or comments from members of the public? And Luke, I see that we have someone joining by phone. If you want to explain how to use the raise hand function when you're calling in case this person wishes to contribute to our conversation. Otherwise, if you're using the Zoom platform, please use the raise hand function, and Luke will allow you to speak.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Luke.
If you're joining from a phone, you can press *9 to indicate you want to speak.
Thank you. And yeah, I see that we have a question or comment from Ian Dunford. Go ahead, Ian.
Ian, you can just unmute yourself.
Okay, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, this is more of a comment. We've prepared testimony. My name is Ian Dunford, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Hotel Trades Council, the union that represents approximately 40,000 women and men working in the hospitality industry across New York City and northern New Jersey. I'm here to indicate our opposition to the project in its current iteration. Our opposition stems from the current working conditions at the Riu Plaza, New York Times Square, a hotel located on 46th Street and 8th Avenue. One of our primary issues is management's utilization of a subcontracted workforce who are offered little to no benefits such as health insurance, sick days, vacation days, or retirement savings. A lack of such benefits is not the industry standard in New York City. This hotel is owned and operated by Riu Hotels and Resorts, the same company that will own and operate the Riu Hotel that would be allowed to greatly expand pursuant to this ULURP application. The Hotel Trades Council cannot support the expansion of another Riu hotel if the jobs will not be good jobs that provide substantial benefits to a workforce that is treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve in the workplace. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Anyone else who wishes to comment on this? Okay, so seeing none, we will move to business session. All right, so we are entering business session, the part where only members of the committee are allowed to discuss the matter. So, as I said, we have two questions in front of us. Do we believe that it is that the improvements justify the bonus FAR, and then we will move to the tax amendment. So let's start with that part of the application. And Clayton, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that this proposal justifies what they are seeking, and I think that the improvements are extremely substantial. I get excited by the idea of removing ductwork and adding dressing rooms. That's just me. I also am very cognizant of the fact that this theater was home to Lorette Taylor's first performances in New York, James Dean's debut, the production of Fences that any of us were lucky enough to have been among the many to see. That's sentimental, but I believe that that the applicant has done a very thorough job of threading a needle that is super complicated. It clearly took us a long time to wrap our head around it. I think the improvements are substantial enough to warrant what they're asking for. I will also add that I am greatly troubled by the what we just heard from the Hotel Trade Council, and I want to discuss that because that's something that we need to heed and I think might be important for our resolution. And I want to know some more information about that. And secondly, Layla, to your point about the additional text amendment changes, the use of the word interior and changing that is something that I find a little troublesome. I don't find it troublesome in this application, but I certainly find it troublesome as far as precedent. So I would want to discuss how we might be able to support this application without setting ourselves or our neighbors up for any trouble.
Yeah. Dave Akalis, go ahead.
Yes, once again, Clayton just said it very well, what I wanted to say. I'm curious, being new to this committee, as to whether something like what the gentleman from the hotel industry said, we are supposed to consider that, or unlike in landmarks, when something is outside the purview of the application. I'm not sure whether what he said is in our purview of what we're doing here in land use.
Yeah, typically we do look at labor issues in this committee, absolutely.
Okay, well then we certainly need to look deeper into the complaint. Thank you.
Yeah. Ryan, go ahead.
So as not to repeat the three items that Clayton described, I am aligned with and believe this is, a good and appropriate qualification of the rehabilitation. We should talk about the Hotel Trades Council's notes, and I would suggest us trying to find some alternative language to the last point.
Yeah. Any other comments that would differ from, yeah, Mike, go ahead.
I would also want to see that there like a limit on the what is it, the 2.8 bonus, that is some type of limit on not only the zoning district of the receiving site, but also the bonus zoning district of the greater site. So both things should be mentioned.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
I believe that the amendment is talking only about the C6 dash 5.5 and doesn't mention anything about the C6 dash 7T. So I just wanted to make sure that there's some type of cap on how much bonus that we are allowing. I think the attorney talked about 3 FARs as the cap now, and this is only, I believe he was saying is more than 1, less than 1, or something around that FAR. So if we could somehow cap it with the
so currently it is kept. They are basically seeking the max. They're seeking the max, meaning that you couldn't, it is the maximum bonusable area that is generated under C6-7T.
Right.
You could not have
for,
more FAR in this particular zoning district.
Yes, for this particular zoning district, but in the future, when other applicants come, when they need to be rehabilitated and a lot is available, there will also be a limit to how much bonus can be generated.
Well, one way to address this is that we could decide that this zoning text amendment basically spells out that you can only cross a split lot, like you can only cross the split if it's coming from a C6-7T to a C6-5.5. In that case, that would be even more restrictive. Still applies to this site, but we make it even more restrictive in the sense that we know what the max bonusable FAR is, and that would probably make us comfortable, so that a 3 bonus would not be permissible and under the amended zoning text.
Yeah, that's something along those lines. That's what I would like.
Yeah, I agree with your point.
Okay. And I agree with everything else that Clayton and everyone else has said.
Okay, I would just say that just for the record, the Landmarks Committee reviewed this application, I think 2 years ago. We loved the restoration work of the theater. We had some concerns about the appropriateness of the design of the annex. We didn't have any issue with an annex per se. We didn't like the design of the annex, so we have a disagreement on that. But that has been discussed, and it's not part of this proposal. But there was no objection to the annex itself, other than its design, and there was great support for the restorative work that is absolutely exquisite. I mean, they're going just above and beyond in terms of the quality of the work that they're proposing. So just for the record, I just want to acknowledge that we have a member of the public who has their hand up. I'm very sorry, but we are in business session, so we're no longer taking questions or comments from members of the public. So hopefully you understand that. And I'm going to go back to members of the committee. Do we have any further comments on this particular aspect, or is it fair to say that we have consensus on the fact that we believe that the proposed work is substantial and that it justifies the bonus? Yeah, we have consensus on that. I think we have consensus also on the fact that the labor issue that was raised by the Hotel Trades Council is a valid one and needs to be addressed in our resolution. Do we agree on that? I see lots of head shaking. Thank you. Do we agree with Mike's suggestion that the language should be more restrictive on who is, which zoning district can transfer to where, so that it still applies to this particular site, but would not, would make it even more unlikely that it would apply to anybody else? Because I think it's really the spirit of what is in front of us. Okay, so I see also lots of head shaking and thumbs up. Okay, now to Clayton's point, the striking of the word interior as being the only qualifying work for a restoration of a theater. Do we believe that it is a dangerous precedent if we strike this word out, or are we comfortable with that? Do we want to discuss that a little bit? Nick, go ahead.
Do you know why it was limited to interior when the legislation was crafted?
Because they really wanted to focus on making the theaters viable and usable and retaining their theater, then their operating theater purpose. So the goal was not to make it pretty. You couldn't say, oh, look, we made it really nice, but, we're going to turn it into something else. The goal was really, you need to keep it as a hotel, and you need to make sure that this use, that any improvements are geared towards, really like making it more accessible, making it more functional, so that the hotel, so that it really, the money that, from the bonus would be geared not to just make it pretty, but, keep it as a theater. So here, the rationale that I see is that the annex, in essence, is exterior work. I mean, they're adding a whole new structure, but it is very substantial. So I'm a little torn because I don't know that any other theater has the opportunity to, a vacant sliver of space and could build an annex. This was very, very unique to the Court Theater. But on the other hand, I could see some exterior improvements that could be significant, although whether they're significant or qualifying are two different things. Nick, go ahead, you have a follow-up.
I would argue that the annex could be considered interior work because it's expanding the interior of the theater, as opposed to facade work, which would clearly be considered only exterior. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Clayton.
Well, I agree with what Nick just suggested, and the other thought that I had was maybe the word operational would be helpful because you're talking about operations. So that it's not just, my only concern is that this then becomes something in the future where funding could go toward landmark work, worked on the facade, that is not what we're talking about. So that's the only thing I want to figure out how to close that loophole.
Well, one very quick way is to just, keep the word interior. And, keep that language the way it is. Nick, go ahead.
No, that was from before.
Oh, okay. We can leave the word interior in the text.
But I guess my confusion about that is if we would then end up hamstringing the applicant if what we end up doing is proposing to leave a word in that makes their project more difficult in the eyes of city planning.
Well, we can wholeheartedly tell city planning that we believe that the interior work, including the interior of the annex, are going to achieve exactly what the texts, plan to achieve. Once again, it's like there are two things in law. There is, like the words, and then there is the overarching principle. I think that everybody will agree that the overarching principle is that they are making a major improvement to the theater.
Okay.
And rather than split hairs on whether it's interior or exterior, I think we can basically say that, it is very substantial. And for that reason, the bonus has to be granted. You don't need to change the language.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay, all right. So we will recommend that the word interior not get stricken from the original text. Okay, all right. So basically we agree on that. We're not going to take a vote. We're not going to split these two parts of the proposal unless we have to. So now let's discuss the shift along the split zone, the split lot, the shifted density from one side of the split to the other. How do we feel about that? We need comments. Yeah, Ryan.
I'll say that I'm comfortable with it, and I think again in the context of this highly specific circumstance, and I think written in our resolution to recognize and acknowledge that, I am comfortable with it as proposed.
Okay, EJ.
I'm comfortable as well, particularly because it seems specialized to this case, and it doesn't, unless someone has information to the contrary, it doesn't appear that there would be very many other lots that would apply to the specific rule.
Yeah, Julie.
Yeah, following up on EJ's comment, if you look at the zoning map, that line runs through mid-block all the way up from 42nd. I don't know how many blocks, and I'm not sure how many lots it would affect, and how it changes the landscape of the theater district. And then also just wondering how this impacts other areas of the city. And this might not be directly related, Layla, but we've had projects on affordable housing where it's split lot, and we had to comply with the envelopes, and we couldn't distribute the extra mass from one side to the other side. And affordable housing is a needed program, and I understand the theater, we want to help and support them, but what happens across the city where there's other needs, and does this set a precedent?
Yeah, so I will say that this is the only reason why I really struggle with this application. I think that I see some merits. I'm going to say that, coming from, a French culture where, cultural institutions are heavily subsidized by local and national governments. I really see that, theater organization like the Schubert organization receives no public subsidies, and they really need to make it commercially viable. So like coming from this perspective, I really see the need, and I see the value and the benefit of, making sure that they generate some financial ability from an asset that they do own. Or once it is recognized that they're eligible for this bonus, I think it's a good thing that it is this particular applicant that is receiving the benefits of this bonus. But I agree with you, Julie. It also applies to affordable housing, and then if we start to allow for density to shift, along split lots, then there's no end. Then there is absolutely no end. And as much as I see the argument of saying, well, it's a fairly modest amount of square feet that are being transferred. But then I see the argument the other way. It's actually a fairly modest amount of money. So, you know, the bonus is still pretty substantial, even if we keep, you know, to the strict reading of the zoning, and we don't allow for density to shift over the split. So I really struggle with that. Are there any other comments from members of the committee?
A follow-up question or comment.
Yeah, Julie, go ahead.
So it looks like a lot of these lots are being benefited because they're merging as one application or one lot. And I'm wondering how that, if the blocks on the other, you know, down the row, if they can merge and then more lots would receive this bonus. It sounds like once you merge, you get that bonus with that one entity.
Yes, that's what was represented to us. I was not aware that, you know, once the lots are merged, the entire merged lot becomes eligible for the calculation of the bonus. That came as a news, and that makes the, you know, the whole lot merger that much more appealing. And so indeed, you know, if other lots to the east of the theater wanted to become merged, then they would become eligible for the same bonus. And you could merge an entire block.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a limit.
Yeah. So, and the text actually says that and maybe we can get clarification from Paul on that, but my understanding is that the bonus shall not exceed 20% of oh yeah, no, I see. Okay, so I'm reading 20% of the basic maximum floor area permitted on the zoning lot containing the development or enlargement. So it's not 20% of the enlargement. It is actually 20% of the zoning lot. So because the zoning lot is merged, then you basically stay under the 20% threshold. Yeah, but I agree with you. You know, it's that also. I mean, it seems that, you know, this is the way the text was written. I don't know that it was the intent, but certainly this is the way it has been written, or, you know, left ambiguous enough that it's considered okay. EJ has his hand up. EJ, go ahead.
Just a question about your concern, Leila. When you talk about concern about setting a precedent, are you talking about ways that this amendment would be used? Because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding of the C6 5.5 district is that it's, you know, not citywide, that it's specific to the special Midtown district and thus would have limited scope. Are you worried about the use of this amendment by other properties, or are you worried about setting a precedent for future amendments to other zoning districts as well?
I'm actually worried about the interpretation of how density has to be built on split lots. Not, you know, notwithstanding any further zoning text amendments, but just the way the you know, the underlying principle would be affected. Because all of a sudden, if you have a section of the zoning resolution that permits density to shift from one side of the split to the other, then you basically give, you know, the first cut to the entire principle. And we know, whether it's landmarks or land use, it is always death by 1,000 cuts, always. And therefore, it's like asking someone, which cigarette caused cancer. In the course of your entire life, okay, you've been a smoker, you probably smoked millions of cigarettes. Can you pinpoint the one that gave you cancer? No, you can't. And this is the same with landmarks or with land use. It's like you do a tiny minor alteration to your landmark building, and you're like, well, yeah, it's no big deal. And you do a second one and a third, and then you have altered the integrity of your entire building, and you can no longer claim that it has retained its historic fabric. And the same goes with land use. You start making a little allowance, and it's justified, based on the merits of the application, but then the underlying implications is that you gave the first cut to the principal.
Okay, thanks.
Clayton.
Oh, Layla, that's brutal. It really makes it tough, because I fully support this application, but I don't see how we can incentivize lot mergers more. That is something that has haunted us in the past. The lack of transparency of the processes around lot mergers. We only find out what's happening years after the lot merger happens. This is what gave rise to the Nordstrom Tower and to, X number of things in our district. I would love to find a way to find text that makes it specific to this special district or to theaters or to the fact that this has only happened 3 times in a generation or whatever. But I also fully recognize your point, Layla, and I don't want to overplay that hand, because I'm very cognizant that our public record is important, and that doing anything that legitimizes incentivizing lot mergers for anyone is really problematic. So I kind of feel like I will go with I'm not going to be a leader on this. I will go with where the committee goes. If there is a way that Layla, you feel like we can craft language that keeps it specific to this type of application, I would support that. But I also agree with you that this is something that we have to take very seriously.
Yeah, it's really tricky, because if we want to approve it based on the public value of the cultural institution, I think that the same would apply to affordable housing. It is a public service, and it is a public benefit. So I don't know how you can favor culture versus housing versus educational facilities, or other very valuable institutions. So it's really tough. Dave Akalis, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Dave.
Yes, once again, Clayton has been so articulate in expressing my feelings. What I know about development here in Midtown, it's just a shame to see all these ugly buildings being bought out by real estate, banks, financial institutions, and they get all the breaks. And here's a beautiful, beautiful theater that desperately is in need of our help, and we're put in this sort of bind. So I'm with Clayton. If we can find the language to do it, we should do it. But if we can't, I don't see how we can. That was not as articulate as Clayton did.
Let's does the committee agree that it's a challenge to set this new precedent? I think that we all agree that on based on the numbers, it's a fairly small amount of density that is being shifted. I don't think it would result in a monster tower. We all agree on that, provided that this is the end of the assemblage for that particular building, which we don't know that. It is possible that there is other available air rights on this block that may be transferred. It's possible that the lot merger would continue. And as Clayton said, lot mergers are very non-transparent. It's a very opaque process that only gets recorded once it's a fait accompli, and there's nothing much we can do about. Ryan, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Ryan.
The tensions everyone described are very real, and I understand and am very sympathetic to all of them. I'll say right now, I would not want this issue to be, for me, the reason that we don't approve this application. And just as we have talked about the fact that our written public record matters and precedent matters, I guess I would also say that our words do matter, and we can have our words mean what we want them to mean. And we should be explicit, intentional, and clear about if we choose to approve this and the specific context that we are comfortable with here. We should just be very, very intentional about that and make sure that we actually go to, even if it has to be a particularly long resolution, with a number of whereases that very, very specifically outline the argument and rationale here. I'm very comfortable with that and recognize the tension, but I don't think this should stop our approval of this application.
I'm sorry, other comments from members of the committee? We need to bring this to a wrap. Julie, do you have any thoughts?
I think Ryan makes a good suggestion. We can craft a resolution to state how specific this site could be. But yes, we are opening doors and there is other needs. So
yeah, Matt,
really dangerous.
Matt, go ahead.
So I was less familiar with the affordable housing sort of parallel here. Can someone or whoever had brought it up just outline what's the principle that caused it to do something negative in that use case, and why we think this is a reason to make an exception?
Well, that's the part that we struggle with. We can't find a reason to make an exception. And if we make an exception because it is a cultural institution, then we take the risk of, undermining the split lot principle for other worthy, public benefit developments, such as affordable housing or educational institutions. And that's the part that is tough. It's like, what is why do we agree that it is okay to amend the zoning resolution? It's not a special permit. It's an amendment to the text, to the way that, to the base principles of the way that our built environment is developed. What is the rationale for, we have a responsibility to make sure that development is reasonable and not overwhelming to our district. And the reason why the split lot rule exists is actually to limit building height. That's the very reason. That's the fundamental explanation for the way the city interprets the split lot, is that we basically said, in this particular area, the density should be lower. The building height should be lower because the building can, the city and that particular area can only take so much. So the question is, what is the reason why we would approve? And if someone wants to chime in, if someone has a good reason, coming into the room, my rationale, I'm going to tell you, is we need to support our cultural institutions. But to Julie's point, we also need to support affordable housing. We also need to support school construction. We also need to support hospital construction, and all those are worthy types of developments that do serve a public benefit.
So I would kind of tend to agree that we should stick to that principle. The one thing that seems different at this current moment is that because of COVID, there's a meaningful reason why the theater in specifically has limitations around its business model that some of these other categories don't have. So I would just sort of put that to the group that's sort of that's a temporal thing. It will not always be true, but that's something that does seem true today.
Yeah, that's very true. Very good point. Paul, I see that you have your hand up. We are in a business session. Unless you have really like a factual clarification that is important to convey, I will not allow any comments or opinions from the applicant at this time. But if you have a fact that you want to share with us so that we base our decision on facts and all the facts, go ahead.
Well, I guess the one thing I wanted to say was on the split lot issue, that if I don't know whether you've gotten the secret analysis as part of the application package, but we had to analyze as part of the secret all of the sites to which this amendment would apply. And you would see when you look at that there were no more than 5 because the sites had to have.
We understand that, but what we're saying is that although it only applies to 5 sites in this very specific instance, it creates a precedent that may use as justification for broader implications. So we perfectly understand that the strict interpretation of this action would only apply to 5 sites. Dave, you have your hand up again.
Yeah, very quickly, I think the term public benefit is the term we're looking for to help us get through this.
But that's the thing, and that's Julie's point, is that we have reviewed applications for affordable housing, and they had to comply with the split lot rule, and we felt that it was perfectly fine, and they didn't ask for shifting of density from one side of the split to the other. So that's what we're wrestling with. I think that the argument of this very topical situation, the fact that the theater industry is brutally impacted by COVID and will continue to be for certainly the short term, and I think is an argument that we can take into account and justify, approving this density shift. Clayton.
So 3 things. So the temporal situation of this industry, the but the limited amount of FAR that we are talking about. I think that, and the fact to the applicant's point that the terms only apply to 5 potential sites are things that we could use in language that goes into a more robust treatment in a resolution, as we have done very few times in our history, as far as I am aware, when we are very conscious about our concern about precedent. And, as Chair Vicky has been extremely concerned about that. And I think that many of our committees have had, at one point or another, one resolution over the course of the last number of years where the worry about precedent is something that goes along and in the resolution and the language with the decision that we're making, if that is what we're concerned about, so that we bake into the resolution, to Ryan's point, the language that matters to us about why it is that we support something, and that we do not consider this to be a capital P precedent for any other applicant who wishes to do the same. I know it's a crazy needle to thread, but that is the way. If we are going to find a way to support the resolution in the way that it is, I think that would be the way forward, to cite those 3 specific logical reasons, and to include in the resolution language about the importance of precedent for this board, and that we do not view this decision as precedent for any similar case. I know there are others. I know Nick and Vicky have a lot of experience with this particular issue. So if there's a finer point to be put on that, but that's the way I could see moving forward.
Yeah. Matt, go ahead.
One quick question. There is a part in the application where they talk about the alternative if they were not to be able to get to shift the FAR back. Is this actually I don't know if this maybe it's a question for the applicant. Is this actually a deal breaker on getting this whole project underway? Or is it sort of
so, you know, typically I will take a crack at responding. In any case, we're in business session. Typically, an applicant may represent that it would be a deal breaker. The reality is that it is most likely not. It may be this particular deal breaker, but there may be another deal that would manifest itself. And, you know, they certainly did not enter this negotiation with the firm conviction that this approval would be granted. If they did, they are fools. You know, sorry for my strong language, but, you know, it would be really silly to take such a important and significant action as, you know, taking it for granted. It would be actually really concerning. So I cannot imagine that, you know, they entered this thinking, oh yeah, you know, it's going to be a stroll in the park. So, you know, for that reason, we have to feel very comfortable that, you know, we're not putting everything in jeopardy. But we also have to be mindful that, you know, they've been at it for many, many, many years. Just for the record, you know, they were supposed to be certified by the Department of City Planning in early March. And then a little pandemic happened and the mayor decided to suspend ULURP, and they had to wait for, you know, another 6 months. So, you know, they've basically endured a lot of delays and everything, which we have to be mindful of. But to think about our action, our recommendation as, you know, being a possible deal breaker would not be something that we should be too concerned about. Ryan.
Just want to say that the examples that Clayton provided as potential language that we could use to explain the specificity of this application, I'd be very comfortable with those. And just one additional point, just want to say, I'm very concerned about precedent points as well. Frankly, I'm also very concerned about Manhattan Community Board 5 being responsive to existential needs and threats to our district in the context of a pandemic. And so I think for me, that is frankly an equal consideration and concern that I have, and is a big part of why I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I think we're reaching some clarity and consensus as to how we're going to approach this. Is there any objection to Clayton's criteria for the approval of this density shift over the split? So the temporal situation, you know, the COVID situation, limited square feet that are being shifted from one side of the split to the other, and the fact that those terms apply only to 5 sites, and we are possibly making it even more restrictive, because we're going to say that it can only apply from a C6-7T to a C6-5.5, you know, possibly reducing even further the applicability. That would be the reasons, and then all the language that we talked about, and that would lead to a approval with conditions, and the conditions would be that, you know, the word interior is not stricken, and I think that's about it. Is that our only condition? I think so. Right? Basically it's this interior word that we want to stay. Otherwise, we're fine with the language, and we're going to explain why. So a motion along those lines, I haven't made the motion yet, but I just want to take the temperature of the room. That would be agreeable to members of the committee. I see a lot of head shaking. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve this proposal. Do we want to make it conditional to keeping the word interior in, or do we want to make it a recommendation that the word interior stays in? Yeah, Mike.
Is it? I would make it a requirement or conditional, whatever the proper term is. But also, should it also be conditional on the C6-7T as also
That's true.
a part of the
Correct.
text?
Correct. Yes. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Okay. So the motion is approval conditional on keeping the word interior in the zoning text, making it more restrictive as to say that it can only be from C6-7T to a C6-5.5 split shift of density.
But Layla?
Yeah.
Just one thing about the interior, I do think though that it is important that we use language saying why it is that we're saying that, because I don't want it to seem as if we're being reactionary saying, oh, no, it can only be interior. I want to say, to Nick's point, we view this as being because it is about the operations of the interior of the theater, just to put a really fine point on that, to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the language will be very, very specific. Okay, so word interior, how the density can shift from one zoning district to the other, and there will be language about the labor issue that was raised by the Hotel Trades Council. Does that summarize our discussion? I think so. And then of course, we will argue our decision as following Clayton's recommendations.
Second.
All right. Mike, you have your hand up before we take a vote. Do you wish to? No, you're good. Okay. All right. So we're voting. Hooray. Dave Achilles.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Aaron, I don't know if Aaron was able to join us. I don't think so. Nancy.
Yes.
Mike. Mike.
Yes.
Tristan.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
EJ.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Evan.
Yes.
Clayton.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
And Layla, I'm a yes. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, applicants, for your patience and helping us understand this complicated application, and good luck with your next step at the City Planning Commission.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Layla, and members of your committee.
We really appreciate your
consideration.
Thank you.
Really careful, and we appreciate the opportunity to present it.
And we'll make the district proud of the great work we're going to do. We promise that.
Yeah, we know that. We know that you guys will, hold your end of the bargain. We are absolutely confident, and we wish you the best in this really very, very challenging time.
Thank you so much. God bless you all.
Many thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a second item on the agenda for discussion. As you probably remember, last month, the Parks Committee, under the leadership of Clayton, he was given a presentation by the Municipal Art Society on the creation of a post as director of the public realm. And it was a sort of natural way to start this conversation for the Municipal Art Society to attend Clayton's committee, as Clayton's committee is the Parks and Public Spaces, which very much encompasses the public realm, but it also has great land use implications. and also budget implications. So we have invited MAS, the Municipal Art Society, to actually come and visit other committees of CB5, including ours, and then hopefully they will be able to join the BEX committee for a presentation, or maybe they already have, but I think if they haven't, hopefully it will be for the next cycle. The goal and the action that we're trying, that CB5 would like to be able to take, is to actually make a budget recommendation that budget is allocated for the creation of such post. So I wanted to introduce Stephen Albanese of MAS, who has been extremely patient. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. Who is here with us tonight to tell us about what this position would encompass, why it would be meaningful for CB5, and how we could support such endeavor. Stephen, the floor is yours.
Sure, yeah. So this is a new position that we are proposing. A mayoral office position. I'm sure some of your faces, I saw you at last month. So yes, we are calling for a director of the public realm that would oversee public space management in New York City. I think, as all of you know, from your experience in Midtown and in all parts of your district, that management of public space is extremely fragmented in New York City. So we are proposing this position to coordinate among agencies, and we really have a particular focus on ensuring sunlight access, as this is part of our Fight for Light campaign. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to answer questions and hear more about what you're thinking about with your budget and how we can plug this advocacy around this role into the work you're doing. So yeah, I guess I'll kind of, I'm happy to elaborate more, but I also want to make sure that I'm able to spend time answering questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I see lots of hands up. That's exciting. Clayton, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So we covered a lot of ground at the Parks and Public Spaces Committee meeting, but I think what's really, if I can help shape the conversation a little bit specific to this committee that might be interesting, is your call to make changes to the seeker manual, I think, is one of the most pertinent things to this committee. And so Layla, I'd love to figure out a way that we might have an opinion or input about how our advocacy over the years dovetails with what MAS is calling for when it comes to evaluating shadow impacts and changes to the seeker manual in particular. And then beyond that, I think that POPs and how this proposed position would affect the management and coordination of POPs. To me, those are kind of the two juiciest land use related components of the proposed position. And I'm happy to hear things that excite other people, but I feel like that's the way that we could weigh in from this committee standpoint the most meaningfully.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Clayton. I see that Ryan has his hand up. Ryan, go ahead.
Somewhat related to what Clayton laid out, I'd just love to hear some more about, budget aside, how you imagine empowering this role. Do you have recommendations on reporting relationships, specific roles and deliverables for which this role is responsible, and therefore be able to drive success through those roles and responsibilities? And to what extent you see those roles and responsibilities being white space that frankly are not being managed at all right now, and therefore someone's going to pick up the ball and run with it? And are there some pieces that currently you see being managed somewhere else that you think frankly are better coordinated through this position?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Stephen, if you want to take a crack at this, go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, we explore different areas within the city government hierarchy where we thought this position would best be housed. We looked at creating a new department. We looked at a sort of commission, and ultimately, based on the research that we did in other cities like Los Angeles, and what we know about New York City, we came to the conclusion that we were suspecting all along that this would be most empowered within the mayor's office. We are in the process of sort of coming up with some draft legislation to help move this along. As far as sort of ensuring accountability and that this position actually is effective, I think that we think that MAS has long advocated for comprehensive planning in New York City, and that's a very big topic area. But we really think that there needs to be a public realm strategic plan in New York City, and that this position could take on that challenge of creating a plan of sorts for the public realm. With sunlight being a key component of that. I'm forgetting what your other. There's a 3-part question, I think, and I'm blanking on what the third question was.
Sure, you're getting to a lot of it, but sort of particular things that the role would be owning, and to what extent they are kind of things that no one's doing right now and therefore need to be done, or others are doing. You think this role would be better positioned to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of agencies that are doing very specific things within the public realm. And we have lots of different plans pertaining to elements of the public realm. There's the DOT street manual, there's design guidance for buildings from DDC, Parks has landscape guidelines, like there's a lot of good stuff that's out there. It's just that nobody's putting all of that together. And so I think that, we feel that this position's role is to inventory those agencies, those plans. I mean, just sort of getting a baseline understanding of what is there, where the gaps are, and ultimately, being in the mayor's office, it takes on a coordination role. I think, as I mentioned, we see real research products coming out of this. I think that there's room for, coordinating things like the public realm improvement funds and expanding programming in public spaces, ensuring accountability for projects like major rezonings to ensure that the public space that is promised actually gets built, and that sunlight standards are met. I think that we see this as kind of an innovation role in a way as well, similar to what cities like Boston have done. They've created a actual sort of innovation form, a branch of their government. Somewhere else I was going with this, it'll probably come back to me, but as far as what other I don't think that we're expecting this role to know the ins and outs of street transit capacity planning, or the details of every sunlight requirement for plant species. I think we view this as an overarching role that coordinates those departments who specialize in those things. So I think that those departments do those things that this position would not be able to do. But I think we really feel like this position fills a huge gap in the coordination aspect of this.
Thank you, Stephen. We have more questions for you. Nancy, go ahead.
My question is, will this person help us to formulate a master plan for Midtown Manhattan for our district? on many of our committees, we ask for master plans to be established so that we can make decisions that fit within that master plan and within those guiding design principles. I've been on the board for many years. There's never been anything like that. Can we anticipate that that might be one of the products of the efforts of this individual?
Yeah, I think it could be. It could be there could be, we've talked about area specific plans being part of the larger plan. The challenge in conceiving of this role and the idea of protecting sunlight across the city and expanding open space and open streets is that, as you know, your community board is very different from one in Staten Island and Queens, and we think that that there's got to be some nuance and variation in the way that we approach things like sunlight standards, open space standards, and that this position could help coordinate and envision some of those plans that are really specific to certain areas.
I think it's fair to keep in mind that this is the beginning of an advocacy, which hopefully will lead somewhere, but it's an opportunity to recognize that the public realm currently is actually not being planned, organized, envisioned. It just happens, randomly, chaotically, whatever the loudest voice in the room may be, whether it's, oh, there's a rezoning, so we're going to do a little something on, this little area, we do like the quarter-mile radius, and that becomes, the area of research, and that's it. There's no, more global thinking, and, there's a lot, it's like, oh, there's a bid here, and the bid does this, and then the neighboring bid does something that is different. It's just totally, chaotic. So I think that, the role of the director of the public realm would be to, develop a vision. Now, what exactly goes into it and how it's implemented, what his role and ability and efficacy becomes, is anybody's guess. But I think that, the simple fact of having a director of public realm would put the public realm on the map where currently it isn't. DOT does what DOT does, but, you can't call it public realm. City planning does what city planning does. You can't call it public realm. And, we, especially, in Midtown, we are the prime victims of this lack of, of vision. So, rather than latching on the director, I think we should latch on public realm, hoping that, if indeed it shapes up and develops, then we'll have an opportunity to really say, okay, this is what we need in CB5, and we need master plan, and we need, protection of our, sunlight on our streets, in our parks, in our COPs, all the things that we talk about ad nauseam month after month. Dave Achilles, I see that you have your hand up.
Yes, Stephen, thank you for your time. I'm a member of a neighborhood association here in Midtown, and one thing we see is a lot of the abuse of pop-up in public spaces. So this is something we certainly need to take care of. And it's more true now than ever with the COVID, with the restaurants trying to survive and taking over public spaces, and the battle for public space here in Midtown is becoming fierce. So we're certainly going to need an advocate. Thank you once again for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Nancy, you still have a hand up. Is it from the last round? Do you want to add something?
I just want to say the word that we deal with, what we deal with all the time is fragmented, disassociated planning, and we need to fix that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also that, in a post-COVID or, a COVID ongoing, new way of thinking about our urban environment, I think that, someone is going to have to think about it. What does our urban environment look in a socially distanced environment? How do we make sure that we create a public realm that allows that, and that allows access to air and light, and in a socially distanced way and in a safe way? So I think that there's a great need, more than ever, for someone to be at the helm, and bring that to this administration, and hopefully the next one. EJ, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if we're in questions or comments at this point, Layla, but I'll echo what a lot of people have said, and I'll emphasize the coordination aspect. There are so many different domains and different city agencies that are in charge of creating the experience of living and working and traveling in the city, that you end up with a situation where a pedestrian could travel from an open street to a Pops to a park to a landmarked space like say Grand Central Terminal, and there's no holistic vision of anyone being responsible for what is that interconnected experience like. And that's a lack of coordination that exists right now, that I think a role like this could be responsible for coordinating. Like Layla said, we don't know yet what it looks like, or what powers this person has, or what control they end up with over the experience, but at least there would be someone whose job is thinking about that interconnected coordination in that experience.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, we have fragmented management of these spaces, but that's not how everyday New Yorkers experience these spaces. I mean, they don't know that they're passing, across 10 jurisdictions. We're really trying to reimagine public spaces as a seamless network, and that this position helps fulfill that vision of open space, public space, I should say, in New York City, being a seamless network. And Mitchell Silver is actually somebody who's talked a lot about that. So it's encouraging that there are people within city government who are thinking that way.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, we'd also other committees were mentioned, and this is something that we'd probably like to discuss at our next transportation committee meeting as well.
Yeah, no, of course it has a big overlap with transportation. Clayton, you have your hand up, and then I think we should try to wrap up this discussion, which will be an ongoing discussion. I'm not trying to stifle any debates, but I just want to be mindful of everybody's time. Clayton, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to put a finer point on Stephen's observation about the coordination of all the different types of public spaces, which are all public realm. I feel like we are so specifically situated to address this because of our experience with the East Midtown rezoning and the East Midtown Public Realm Improvement Fund, and the battle, the years that went into that, and now currently the execution and carrying out that fund. It has been dizzying to almost have to educate people on what public realm even means, and even talking to city agencies to explain why such and such is public realm and such isn't, and what is public benefit. So I feel like we can particularly couch it in terms of our own lived experience, fighting prior, during, and since that rezoning, as these new public realm improvements are being carried out now in our district.
Yeah, no, very, very true. And we are going to undergo a similar exercise with the review of the Penn Station redevelopment, where the key impact that we can have is on the public realm. And we are totally, unequipped in terms of, technical support from any city agency. Who do you turn to? I mean, DCP has no clue. DOT has no clue. In any case, it's going to be a state-run land use action. So, this is where typically the director of the public realm would be a very, very precious ally. you know, we have MAS to help us through this great process in the coming month. But I think that going forward, it would be really great that, you know, such position is created. So in terms of the process, you know, we felt it was really important that Stephen come to us, that MAS has a chance to present this advocacy that they are leading. We, our committee, we're not going to take an action, because the actual action is going to come from the BEX committee, because it's going to be a budget request, because it's timely. It is right at this juncture of the budget process that we can actually make requests. And but, you know, both Clayton and I and Renee believe that it is really important, and that, you know, as many members of our committee are aware and understand why we're going to make this budget request, which is a big one, and that, you know, is going to be a new one. So it's, you know, Stephen came to our committee for information purposes. We're not going to take a vote. I think that, you know, it's fair to say that we probably all support the creation of such position, but we're going to leave it to the BEX committee to actually make this recommendation, get on board with, you know, the actual action, take this to a vote by the full board of CB5, and then hopefully it will become a borough-wide advocacy. Hopefully the other community boards will join in on this call. So I hope it's clear for everyone. Do we have any follow-up questions or comments on this particular presentation? And if not, then it will be time to wrap up. I just want to make sure that everybody had a chance to say what they had to say. Fantastic. All right, so thank you, Stephen, so much for this presentation, for your patience. And we really look forward to continuing to work with you and with MAS on this specific advocacy, but also on the access to sunlight, which is an issue that we care about deeply. And that is a very challenging one for Midtown. So thank you so much. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it, and
Thank
appreciate
you so
your
much.
continued interest in this.
Thank you, guys. Thank
Take
you
care.
all for your patience. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Good night, everybody.